Carol, thank you.
Talking of rain, water companies that fail their customers could be forced to pay double the amount of compensation.
That is one of the proposals being considered by the government as it seeks to crack down on poor service, missed meter readings and contamination. Our correspondent Francis Reid has more.
Stinky sewage, millions of pounds in fines for the water companies involved. And of course, in May this year, handing out bottled water to avoid the parasites, Cryptosporidium, found in the water supply, affecting thousands of people living in Devon and leaving them without tap water for 2 months.
They're meant to be providing a safe service. We don't have the luxury of being able to pick and choose water services. They're the only option that we have. We have to use them.
The Environment Secretary, Steve Reed, says that people had been let down time and time again and that it has to stop and that the government has come up with a plan. Proposals, if they go through, would increase the amount of reimbursement customers are entitled to from water companies and expand the circumstances in which it would be given. There'd be automatic payments for those who'd been told to boil their water or when water companies had failed to conduct meter readings. If approved, the plans would also double payments for those who'd dealt with things like missed appointments or flooding from sewers. Water UK, which represents water companies across the country, said it shared the government's ambition to reform an out-of-date system and that it was focused on its plans to secure water supplies and end sewage in rivers. The plans will go through an 8-week consultation period starting today. Francis Reid, BBC News.
Well, let's talk about those plans, shall we? We're joined now on the sofa by Andrew White, who's a senior leader in social policy at the Consumer Council for Water. Good morning. So what do you think, then? The government have got a plan. Is it good enough for consumers?
Well, we're really delighted because it's really important that customers have this fallback of payments, of standards that they can expect from their water companies and that's backed by payments if things go wrong. The standards that were there, they're long overdue for review, which is why we've been calling for that and we've been working on that over the last year. So we're really delighted that the government has picked those up, is addressing them at pace and giving them priority.
So what should those standards be?
So we need to make sure that customers, the basics are there for them. So things like when companies make appointments, that they keep to those, that when they lose water supply, things go wrong. And then there's also new things like if there's a boil water notice, if people have to boil their water, they should be able to know that there is an automatic right to compensation payments when that goes wrong.
But not in the past, is that right? This isn't retrospective. So people like we just saw in the piece there in Brixham in Devon, people remember that outbreak earlier in this year. They wouldn't get compensation under this plan.
Yeah. The thing to remember about this is there's been some standards in place. These will boost those and enhance them significantly, in some cases doubling or more than doubling that. It will also bring in new standards for things that haven't been covered before. But none of this is taking over from water companies' responsibilities. It's really important that they own their responsibilities. This is about having a baseline standard across all companies in England and Wales. But that doesn't prevent water companies from giving their customers fair treatment when things go wrong.
And fines for water companies are not new, are they? They're not a new thing. So what difference will compensation for customers make?
I think one of the great things about it is not only does it mean that customers can rely on that service standard payment, but also it provides an incentive for water companies to get things right first time. They know that they will have to pay out these payments and potentially in high quantities, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, if they don't get things right. So it's really important that these standards are there to hold companies to account.
I suppose the worry might be that if the water company's having to pay out loads of money in compensation and fines, that's less money potentially to make the changes to the system that would lead to the improvements a customer wants.
Yeah, well, the way the industry is regulated by Ofwat, that makes sure that the companies have the money they need to deliver those services. If they don't deliver that well, then the risk is with their shareholders and owners. It's not with customers. So it's really important that that responsibility lies with them.
So while we are talking about this, while there is this debate going on, what else should be looked at?
So, I mean, another area that we think is really important, we've talked there about the fact that water companies do need to make improvements. We're likely to see bills rise even further. some customers are already struggling to pay their bills. Now, all water companies do have social tariff schemes in place that can give lower bills to those that need it. But what we would like to see is a single tariff across all water companies, so it's really clear what everyone is entitled to, and that should be set at a level which will end water poverty. So no one should be spending more than 5% of their income after housing costs on water bills.
How confident are you that, say, 5 years' time, the end of this Parliament, that will be the case?
We really want to see that. We're working.
But do you think it will happen?
I do believe it will happen, because I think it will need to happen. Bills are potentially rising. We are working well with government on this. We hope to continue working with them to get improvements like this into place and make sure that the industry does what it needs to for customers.
And one of the things I imagine people sometimes feel when it comes to complaining about water companies is they do feel powerless. Will that change?
Absolutely. I think, this gives them a guarantee of standards. But also, we're here as the customer watchdog. The Consumer Council for Water has people's backs. If they need us, we are there to help them, whether it's through individual complaints or by things like this, where we're looking after their interests, making sure that standards are rising across the sector.
OK. Andrew, thank you very much indeed for coming in. Good to talk to you. Andrew White there from the Consumer Council for Water.